What's up guys, it's Alex the Magician here, back for another Heroes 3 tier list video, and in this one we're going to be ranking tier 1 units in terms of how good they are, their usefulness, etc. So once again, as any other tier list, this is my opinion, so please don't hate me if I rank your unit, your favorite tier 1 unit lower than you think it should be, but do let me know in the comments below what you think, and if you agree or disagree, and what you would change and why. I'm always curious about hearing your opinions and points of view as well. And also do let me know if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see me do. I've actually gotten a couple of good ideas recently that I think I'm going to make into another series. So thank you guys for that, and please keep them coming. Alright, so let's just get into this. We're going to do this from the bottom up. So at the very bottom, I'm going to rank Pixies and the upgraded version sprites. So the reason that I have these here is just because they're super weak. They don't really deal a lot of damage, and they're super squishy. So you really, like, when compared to the rest of these, you can make a power stack out of the rest of these. Pixies and sprites, you really are not going to have a power stack of in the early game. Usually the only use for them are as fast one stacks. They are pretty fast. The Pixies have speed 7, sprites have speed 9. But they do require the Magic University to be able to build the upgrade, so they're a little bit difficult to upgrade. But the upgrade also gives them no retaliation, so the sprites can be a little bit more useful. You can abuse certain things with them. However, in most cases, the main use for both Pixies and sprites are as fast one stacks to speed up your scouts, and also for Luna, to use flying, one hex flying units to abuse her firewall. And really, you're not going to be making a power stack out of these, and it's just really easy for that. Even if you have like 200 of them, it's just really easy for them to melt away. Alright, next I'm going to rank the Hobgoblins and the Imps. So, Hobgoblins, Goblins, Imps, Familiars. Both of these are here because they're also really squishy. So, the Hobgoblins at least do hit hard. They do deal decent damage. A Gretchen start with Stronghold is viable. Some people do it. They're also relatively fast. They have speed 7, the upgraded goblins do. But again, they are just not tanky at all. So they just melt away, like if you want to take hives or something like that, they'll melt away in hives really, really quickly. And it's the same story with familiars, except familiars don't even hit that hard. So they're really weak all around. You really can't rely on a familiar power stack. Some people do start as Ignatus for Inferno, and there are some uses for them. You can actually take pickets with familiars. I do have a technique on that if you guys search my guide to taking pickets. There is a way to do it on Ignatus, because on Ignatus, on Inferno terrain, they're going to have speed 9, the familiars will. So you actually outspeed the Wolf Raiders, and you can kind of manage their positioning and not get hit. But of course, if they morale, you're screwed. So both of these, if you take any hits on them, they melt away really, really quickly, and that's kind of why they're as low as this. So their utility is limited by that. If they get hit, you're just kind of screwed. Okay, next I'm going to rank the Master Gremlins. Now, this is one that you really, really want the upgrade for. Because the regular Gremlins, they don't have a ranged attack. And the ranged attack on the Master Gremlins, it's the only tier 1 ranged unit. And that's what makes them a lot better. Because the Gremlins themselves, they're also super weak. They're probably even worse than Imps. Their HP is low, their stats are low, and they don't deal much damage. They just suck all around. But when you upgrade them, they have the ranged attack, which can be really, really helpful. And that's really what Tower relies on in the early game, to take your first couple of lamps, for example. And then after that, when that gremlin stack is buffed by genies, they can be really, really useful. So their utility is pretty decent. You just got to keep them safe. You just got to protect them at all costs. If whatever you're fighting closes the gap, you're screwed. So that's kind of it about the Gremlins. All right, next I'm going to rank the Halberdiers and Pikemen. This one upgrade is not necessarily that useful for. The reason that I have these here is because they're actually the best tier 1 unit in terms of their stats, right? They're close, like Centaurs are close. Centaurs have better speed, of course, but the Halberdiers are really tough in terms of their HP. They're pretty damn tanky, and in terms of their stats, they're pretty damn good. So these guys are really good meat in hives, for example, and just overall, they're good meat to have, even to protect your archer stack, etc. If you are, for example, fighting 2 hex units, you can just split your halberdier stack or pikeman stack in 2 stacks and use two of those stacks to protect your archers, and that usually helps you. Even if something closes the gap, these guys can usually tank a few hits. So, the reason, though, that I don't have these higher, even though they have some of the best stats of tier 1 units, is because you're usually going to have really low numbers of them. That's the drawback. So that's why castle heroes, like, they usually come with a really small number of these, and there's no pikeman specialty castle hero that comes with 3 stacks of these, like for example, Oceanids, Gnolls, Skeletons, and Troglodytes. So you are usually not going to have very significant numbers of these to make a big enough difference. So Castle still struggles taking hives in the early game because you're not going to have a large enough number of these, unless, of course, you find some external dwellings or halberdier boxes or something like that. So for that reason, they're a little bit lower than some of these other units that are weaker, actually, in terms of their fighting ability, but you just get more of them, so the utility that you get out of them in the early game is better. So, all right, next I'm gonna rank the Oceanids, Gnolls, Troglodytes, and Skeletons. So all of these are basically really good early game stacks because you've got heroes that come with 3 stacks of these, right? So you got Cassiopeia for Cove with 3 stacks of Oceanids, you got Dracon for Fortress with 3 stacks of Gnolls, you got Galthran for Necro with 3 stacks of Skeletons, and Shakti for Dungeon with 3 stacks of Trogs. And I'll just talk about the Gnolls, Skeletons, and Troglodytes first, because the Oceanids are slightly different. So these 3, they're all really similar in the sense that all of them allow you to take a size 3 hive on day 1. So you can do that with Dungeon, you can do that with Fortress, you can do that with Necro, provided, of course, you don't lose too much fighting whatever is guarding the hive. And the only thing is, for Fortress and Dungeon, that's really good. For Necro, it's not always that good, because for Necro, you don't necessarily want to trade away your Skeleton stack for a Wyvern stack. You want to kind of continue snowballing the Skeleton stack. For Dungeon and Fortress, trading away some of your day 1, Gnoll or Troglodyte stack for 8 Wyvern can usually be really good, especially if you have more Wyvern. So at the same time, the Trogs and the Gnolls can allow you to take the Hydra or the Dragon dwelling. They can allow you to take a size 1 cons, same with the Skeletons, size 1 XP shop, size 1 Red Tower on day 1. So overall, really good early game tempo for all of these, really good utility. For the Skeletons and the Gnolls, you don't necessarily need the upgrade because they're going to be on terrain, and on Dracon and Galthran, they're going to be speed 6. So you can still do crypts with them, you can still do churchyards, etc. On Troglodytes, as far as they go, you do need the upgrade. So usually day 1, you do get the upgrade for Troglodytes because Troglodytes are going to be on dirt terrain. Dungeon doesn't get native terrain on Jebus Cross, so you really need that +1 speed advantage, which will make them speed 6 on Shakti. So that allows you also to take crypts and churchyards, conses, etc. For Skeletons, the reason to upgrade them would be if you want to take crypts or churchyards on side heroes or conces, etc., without a plus speed artifact, or if you happen to be doing a fight like something like vampires that you really want to match speed, or something that you want to have speed 7 for. And for gnolls, usually it's either doing fights that do require speed 7, or it's taking Hydra dwellings. So Hydras have speed 6 on Swamp, and with Marauders, you can really easily take Hydra dwellings. So, but yeah, all of these are really good early game tempo, really good early game power stack. So that's why when comparing them to the Halberdiers, they're weaker, but you're going to have large enough numbers of them to make them really, really useful in the early game. All right, and as far as Oceanids go, so they're a little bit different from these three. They're actually going to be no good in hives because they're also really squishy. They hit hard and they're fast, and you usually do get the upgrade on day 1 for additional speed on your scouts, and just to give you additional speeds in fights, especially since you do need to be fast with these. You do need to be careful about how you do the fights, so that you take as few hits on these as possible, because, well, really no hits at all, because as soon as you take hits on them, you're screwed. You can take pickets, so day 1 you can even do a size 3 picket with Cassiopeia, and if you get some external dwellings, you can even take a maxi picket. Conces are pretty good with Bless as well, because their damage ranges from 1 to 3, so they're a really good target for Bless, which Cove rolls really easily in the Mage Guild. It has a good chance for rolling Bless. But like I said, these are super squishy if you do get them hit. And in hives, which is really what you want as Cove, because the Wyvern stack is not going to give you the terrain penalty, they are going to be really, really squishy. And when you take pickets and you take conces, dragging angels and cyclopes through the swamp is really not ideal by any means. So kind of for those reasons, I was actually going to rank them as the top tier together with the Centaurs, but for the reason that they're just really squishy and no good at hives, and and sort of in the same category as the other 3, where you have 3 stacks of them starting with Cassiopeia, I decided to put them at the top of the A tier. All right, and the top tier, as you guys may have guessed, is actually going to be Centaurs. I know, surprise, right? I hate Rampart, but I had to rank these as the top tier. Even though you're not going to have huge numbers of them, they are still really, really good as a tier 1 unit. They are really strong. They're pretty damn tanky. Like, their stats and HP are comparable to the Halberdiers, and their numbers are going to be larger. So you're usually going to have somewhere around 50 of them in the early game. If you get some external dwellings or 2 Rampart heroes, you may get even more, or if you find the Centaurs box. They are decent in hives, even though their numbers are not super huge, so you can't take a size 3 hive with Rampart, but still, they will be pretty useful, and they're fast, so you will be able to keep these guys safe in a lot of cases. The one disadvantage I would say that these guys have is that they're 2 hex units, so it makes them a little bit awkward to maneuver in some cases. Sometimes the terrain can really screw you, and they are not necessarily the best as 1 stacks, but if you do go for the upgrade, which I actually don't, I usually don't go for the upgrade because I try to build the Grand Elves as soon as possible, or I try to go for the Dragons if I find some external dwelling. So I usually skip the Centaur upgrade, but I've seen a lot of people do it, which there's certainly merit for it, giving your scouts better speed and, just giving you more maneuverability in fights. So it is a viable upgrade, and yeah, overall, like a really solid unit. The stack is not incredibly big, but I just had to rank these in the top spot just because of how strong they are as a tier 1 unit. Okay, guys, so that's it for my tier 1 unit tier list. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and again, do let me know in the comments below if you guys agree or disagree and why. And as always, check out my Twitch stream if you guys would like to see more English-speaking Heroes 3 content. Link in the description below. And I will see you guys soon. Peace out.